Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy Humanitarian Aid, written by sjanevardsson. She stood uneasily as her secondary mother fussed and smoothed the smoke-colored fur of her ruff, while her prime mother and milk father watched. Her milk father stepped in, making sure her tunic hung properly and didn't bunch up her upper and lower shoulders, and didn't display too much of her red furred legs. "Mustn't show your upper knees," he said. "You look perfect, Senna," her prime mother said. "We'll be watching you from right here." Senna nodded, folding her 4 hands together, talons of the lower hands hidden beneath the fingers of her upper hands, a gesture of thankful respect. "Thank you, Prime Mother, Secondary, and special thanks to Father for making the colorful tunic for my presentation." He scratched the red fur on the top of her head, between her ears, threatening to muss up her ruff again, much to the annoyance of his secondary mother. "You'll win this history bee for sure." With that, she strode onto the stage, stepped up to the podium, and gave her presentation. How Tyroxy was freed and the hegemony fell. A thank you to Terra. In the galactic cycle 1342, the Tyraxian system was at the outer edge of the hegemony space, a convenient system for the hegemony, where Tyraxians could be employed as slave labor to mine the rich asteroid fields for metals, a situation that had gone on for more cycles than anyone could remember by then, at least 3 or 400. At the same time, in the Galactic Federation, the Quillari and Terran peoples, humans they call themselves, were in the midst of what was termed a Cold War. Despite both being member species of the Federation, what started as questionable business practices on the Quillari side almost saw the two species go to war. The dispute arose when the Quillari minister in the Federation government gave Quillar the right to claim the star system JZ41814379, despite the existing 10-cycle-old Terran claim request and several Terran outposts on the second planet. Like their home planet, the humans enjoyed a high gravity of the second planet and planned on fully settling it. The extensive asteroid belt in the system was rich with metals all the way through heavy fissile materials and would provide enough trade for the system and boost the fortunes of all humans spread throughout the Federation. The Quillari, however, set their sights on the 4th planet, smaller with more comfortable gravity, and planned on mining not only the asteroid belt but the inner planets as well. It was only through a legal loophole that Quillar was able to jump the claim, to use the human phrase, and snatch the system out from under Terra. Quillari outposts began to spring up on the 4th planet, and tensions began to mount. The Terran government was calling for the compromise where Terra and Quillar could share the system and its wealth, but Quillar was adamant that they would not concede. This had been going on for nearly a dozen cycles when both Quillari and humans began disappearing from their outposts in the system. Anyone familiar with the history of the hegemony knows this was a prelude to annexation. The Quillari and Terran governments, however, accused each other, but neither side would make a move without proof. Not realizing the high oxygen concentration needed by humans, none of the humans the hegemony snatched survived the trip back to Tyraxy. The Quillari, however, did survive the trip, and the hegemony went to work in the usual way. When they developed what they considered to be a deadly enough virus, they sent their Federation agents out from Tyraxy to work, spreading it through Quillari space. They also sent agents to spread what they hoped, based on the autopsies of the humans, would be an equivalent among Terran space. But the death toll was far lower than they expected. As the viruses raged, spreading through the planets of the two races, Federation virologists were hard at work. Many of them were human and Quillari, working side by side as they rarely did. It was a Terran animal doctor who figured out how to fight the virus. Both were similar in makeup, but the one released to kill humans was killing the non-sentient animal companions in far greater numbers. The Terran government laid out huge sums of credits to produce vaccines for humans and their animal companions and shared the data with the Quillari. With the high death toll amongst the Quillari, though, there was no way that they'd be able to produce enough vaccine to keep all of their systems alive. It seemed as though they would be reduced to, at best, the whole world, and at worst, extinct. This is where the story gets strange. Politicians and pundits from many species, the Quillari among them, expected the humans to let the Quillari die out, take over the disputed claim, and let the Federation dole out the rest to everyone else. Instead, the humans went to work manufacturing vaccines for the Quillari. They put aside concerns about the disputed system and provided vaccines, people to administer the vaccines, and every hospital ship in the Terran fleet to treat the sick. The fact that the humans had to wear oxygen masks and keep the ship at less than half their regular gravity didn't stop them. The Terran government called it a humanitarian crisis. How a pandemic amongst another species could be a crisis for the humans was not understood. It exposed the Federation, and especially the Quillari, to a different side of humans, what they called humanitarian aid. Again, that word, humanitarian. For as much as they could be fearsome, untiring, and motivated warriors, they could be every bit as much of a caring prime mothers of members of another species. When it seems the Quillari pandemic was getting under control, Terran scientists had finally teased apart the viruses of both the Quillari and human pandemics, and determined that they were not natural, but engineered. By tracing the spread of the disease backwards, it became clear that they started both Quillar and Terra spread out from there, far faster than community transmissions would allow. By tracing the travel of billions of people during the time of the spread, 14 individuals were tracked down and brought in for questioning. When word reached Terra that the 14 conspirators had been apprehended and had revealed the hegemony's plans, humans switched back to the warlike state. This was unlike anything the Federation had seen, though. Rather than dealing with the border skirmishes of pirates, Terra geared up for a full-blown war. They did not wait for the Federation approval, and the government was still busy arguing about whether the other races would provide any support, and, if so, how much support they would offer when the Terran fleet left for hegemony space. My prime mother remembers, as an infant still suckling at her milk father's teat, seeing the orbital defenses of Taraxi fall. She remembers the fear all Tyraxians felt when the first Terran ships landed. Most of all, she told me, she remembers how their bare faces reddened with anger behind their breathing masks when they saw how the Triaxians were treated. The Terrans offered surrender for the Run-Through and Salanth overlords, killing anyone of them that held a weapon of any sort, and putting the few that laid down arms into the recently emptied slave cages. Yet, they spared the children, the elderly, and those unable to fight. That was the first clue for the Taraxians that there was something different about them. Before the military fleet left for the hegemony's homeworld, the medical and freight fleets arrived. The same industry they'd put behind caring for the Quillari was applied to our species. For the first time in our known history, Tyraxians were treated as equals. They brought us food, medicine, treatment, and, perhaps most importantly, education. As the capital of the hegemony fell, humans replaced the flag with the flag of the Galactic Federation, the Terran flag, and the Quillari flag. It is said that the battle cry was, "For Earth! For Quillar! For the Federation!" It was less than 2 cycles later that the Terran fleet returned to Federation space, having destroyed the hegemony entirely. Each world they freed, they offered the opportunity to join the Federation. Not that the Terran government had the authority to make that offer, but it didn't stop 16 new species from applying anyway, much to the consternation of the government. Senna waited for the laughter in the audience to die down before continuing. And what became of system JZ418-14379? Citing gratitude for everything the Terrans had done, the Quillari relinquished their claim on the system and gave it to Terra. They knew there was no other way that they could pay back the massive debt the humans could have leveled against them for their aid during the pandemic. Paying them off in this way also saved face for the Quillari politicians. The humans settled on the second planet, as they had planned, and offered the fourth planet to the Quillari for settlement. They then invited the Hyradians to settle on any of the satellites of the gas giant fifth or sixth planets, where they would be right at home. The third planet had 1/10 more gravity than Tyraxi. They offered to us. They didn't offer it as it was, barren and uninhabitable though. Their engineers and terraformers worked with us on Tyraxi to determine the best way to make it livable for us. That they were able to do so in less than a dozen cycles is testament to their ingenuity and industriousness. That they did it for no charge is a testament to their soul. This, we have since learned, is what they meant by humanitarian. Letting others suffer is not in their nature, on the whole. They have a deep capacity for empathy, even for those of other species. If you think that war and industry are the only things humans do well, you have not known a human. To know a human and to let them know you is to become their friend. To become their friend is to be treated as family. So System JZ418-14379 is now known as the Eden System, and the third planet, which they named Sanctuary, is where we are now. This is our home, our neighbors, our Quillari and Hyradian, and, best of all, humans. The humans, along with the rest of us in the Eden System, have proven that we can live and work together without segregating ourselves by star system. In fact, there are now 19 species living on 4 inhabited bodies of this system, and I see a lot of them represented here tonight. As such, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I'd like to thank the judges for organizing this history bee. Most of all, I would like to thank the humans and the Terran government for giving me a chance to have a history larger than just the slavery of my people. Senna walked off the stage to applause, her mothers and father waiting for her. She was surprised, though, by the human woman who had been hiding behind her prime mother. Instead of a mask, she wore a simple cannula that delivered oxygen to her nose. It was something that most humans did here. Shorter than Senna and her parents, but heavier, more compact, and capable of jumping insanely high in this gravity, with short, cropped, curly black hair and rich, deep brown skin that she hadn't expected to see again before graduation. It was the woman who had helped her parents migrate from Tyraxia to Sanctuary, and somewhere along the way, she became family before moving back to Holdout, the second planet in the Eden system. Auntie, I didn't know that you would be here. The human wasn't, of course, her real aunt. That wasn't something the Tyraxians had. The siblings of your parents were your semi-parents, and their children were your siblings. But the humans saw it differently. The small woman gave Senna a hug that, had she been less careful, could have crushed her bones. I couldn't let you step out there without my support now, could I? If I'd known you were here, I wouldn't have left out the bit about how I'm named after you, Senna pouted, in the way that her auntie had taught her. Yes, if you'd known, you'd have wanted me to hold your lower hand the whole time. Senna laughed. Yes, that would have been so much better. I was so nervous. But did you see? I did what you said and made them laugh. You did, Peanut. You did. You can't call me that anymore. I'm bigger than you. I know. But you'll always be my sweet little fire, Peanut. She reached up and mussed the fur at Senna's ruff. There, now you look more like yourself. How many more contestants are there? Her milk father asked. 3 or 4, she said. Not too much longer before they pick the winner. Well then, the woman said. When this is all done, we'll go celebrate. Ice cream, my treat. What are we celebrating, Auntie? You know you're going to win, right? If you don't, well, we'll just call it Humanitarian Aid. End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to quickly thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Alithia, Barky, Trygan95, Beauty Cure, Meridian 117, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholt, Jordan Bucksborn, Angry Marine, Albard and Gusta, Savage Patch Papa, and Arcadian.